The aim of the book really is to try and recognise that there are two major challenges that brands are facing. On the one hand, there's the issue that their audiences, their constituents, if you like, are in many cases turning their back on brands, and there's an issue of relevance or meaningfulness. And at the same time, there's this issue around the whole sustainability debate, in that businesses are doing a lot from the supply side in terms of how they operate as a company, but they're still struggling to find a way to make this relevant and engaging for their consumers. And what we try and do in the book is say that these two things are actually very related, and actually we can find a solution to one, the solution to the other will follow too. One of the reasons brands are having this dual problem is because they're focusing too much on sustainability. And this is actually focusing on a symptom of the current situation. It's a very serious symptom for sure, but we think it is a symptom. And if you really want to find a relevant solution, you've got to go to the cause. And for us, this is what we call a collapse in social capital. When we talk about social capital, we're talking about the value that's locked up in all the relationships that exist between us. When you have very low social capital, so when people don't talk to each other, when they don't actually think like each other, and when they don't actually trust each other, it's very easy to marginalize voices and to externalize costs from a business perspective, because you can easily push these things outside the very sort of exclusive conversation you're having a lot of the time. What social capital does is it widens this conversation so that all these different people come in, all these costs now become relevant. So when you have high social capital, you develop high levels of sustainability. And conversely, when you have very low social capital, which is where we think we are now, we're at a tipping point now, but that's where we are, you make it very easy for unsustainable practices to flourish. So for us, the most important thing a brand should do is not look at trying to report sustainability, it should look to try and encourage social capital. I think the term gets used a lot, that there's a crisis with brands, there's a crisis with branding, but I think in many ways there is. In a way we can look back and say, when brands really started, our argument, and it's probably just one, but our argument is actually they were really created in a way to eliminate something called provenance costs, is what we call them in the book, which is when you had mass industrialization and migration and people went into very specialized jobs, all three things that happened as a result of the Industrial Revolution, you lost touch with a lot of the things, a lot of the devices, if you like, that were around you that allowed you to evaluate the provenance of what it was you were buying. So you could go to your butcher and you could ask for, is this a good cut of meat? You could go to your tailor and say, is this a good cloth? Is this going to be a hard-wearing coat? Suddenly those sort of things started to disappear because you're getting mass-produced products. During this period, what brands were really responding to was some sort of central idea, which is I need stuff. I need good clothing, I need a house, I need transport, I need. And that then sort of morphed into this idea of I want. I don't just want a car, I want a car that says something about me when I drive it down the street, and I want it to be comfortable and air-conditioned and everything else. We're now going into this sort of I belong era, where people really want to be connected. They want to basically define themselves, understand themselves, explore themselves in the context of not just their primary group, not just this bonding group, but a much wider group. Brands have managed to remain meaningful, by and large, by adapting to those different phases. If it's stuff that you need, I'll be meaningful to you because I'll reduce these provenance costs. I'll assure you a certain amount of quality and craftsmanship, etc. And then when it got to this I want phase, again, brands are quite good at being meaningful because it was this very intoxicating, exclusive relationship. I want to be like you, and the brand says, congratulations on buying me. You made the perfect choice. Now, when it's all about belonging, so it's not about you as an individual, it's very much about you in the context of whatever group, whatever community you choose to define, brands aren't being so meaningful because they're still attached to this very intoxicating brand loyalty approach. And in many cases, I don't think this is in all cases, but in many cases this is coming about because brands are still fixated on the product or the service. And actually what people want now is the experience, and that experience is as part of a community. So even though we get some brands that are becoming very adept at encouraging these brand communities, which is an example of social capital, because what they're doing is they're stimulating these aspects of social capital around the brand, they're still using that community to sell the product, and what they should really be doing is actually selling the community. So for us, the key to brand value for the business is building a brand that is valued.